how to design a mobile or an iPad app, and start developing a content management system that can actually build, and if we getting into the geeky side, truly developing JSON frameworks and pushing the data into the front end aspect and launching it for the mobile phones, being the first in the market. I think it's the adrenaline kick. It was the adrenaline kick that, sort of set me in this trajectory of saying that the future is towards the digital media and sort of excelling there.
Mesh, thank you so much for being on the show.
Pleasure to be here.
Talk to you soon. Andrea, I snuck 30 seconds because I'm going to do a contest in the comments. We're talking about innovating.
What is that, Gary?
This is a burger.
Okay.
I want people to guess in the comments from what company is this burger from?
Does it have strawberries in it, Gary?
It does not, but I'm ready for the next guest.
All right, let's go.
Everybody can figure out the burger.
All right. Next, we welcome Renata Ferraiolo, VP of Marketing. Renata joined SC Johnson in Brazil in 1997, and she has been a globetrotter as she took on leadership roles in marketing and in sales in Brazil, Switzerland, Netherlands, and the USA. She is revered as an award-winning, result-driven people person with over 23 years of global FMCG experience, living true to her purpose. Please welcome Renata.
Renata, how are you?
Good. How are you? Nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
It's always good to see you. I'm blown away. I think we got a winner. I think this is right. Hold on one second. Reality Check was the first one to say Mr. Beast's Burger. They are correct. Hit me up on email. Renata, it's so great to see you. I adore your vision as a marketer. Let's talk about innovation as you go into this year as just a progressive marketer. As a I know a little bit about you, right? You've got some youngsters around you, your family that are progressive. You've had this incredible career. What are the innovations that are most interesting to you? What are you paying attention to? And break it down two ways. Mm-hmm. One, from the sense of like a Fortune 500 executive thinking big companies, which are different. And one is just like you, because I think you're good at it, stuff that's just on your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. But first I have to say, like Greg, I have, my family is a big fan of you. I'm a big fan of your company. And I guess if I'm progressive, I've been learning a lot from what you've been doing and some key partners that you have as well. And my kids are big followers of you and card traders right now.
I love it.
So a couple of things will sound obvious, but remember, I'm coming from the CPG world, right? The CPG world right now, low, medium growth categories, right? So to have this in mind with some of the things that I'm going to talk about. The first thing I would say from the CPG world is partnership with growing fast social media companies. So I would say, for example, TikTok, right? I don't think the CPGs have cracked the code on TikTok yet. So this partnership with TikTok, I think it's one great example of where CPGs should be innovating, especially on content creation and how to partner with TikTok and influencers of TikTok and people that know how to do TikTok. CPGs are still trying to create the content themselves, still trying to put a lot of rules and guardrails around it. And one of the major objectives that we normally have in CPGs is to grow household penetration, right? And it's super...
Explain household penetration, and when you do that, because I want people to know, everybody who's debating who was the first person to say Mr. Beast Burger, we will go back, look at the film, and I'll reach out to the actual first person. So don't worry. I know it's a brouhaha in the comments, but break down household penetration, because a lot of people here are hearing that, but I don't think they know what it is. And actually tell everybody what CPG stands for, because I see that question as well.
So, yeah, absolutely. So household penetration, we're trying to reach a larger number of consumers. We're trying to reach a larger number of houses. So it's a metric, it's a KPI, it's an objective that we have in consumer product good companies, which are the CPG companies. So we're trying to get our product in more consumers' house. So while we've been doing that for many, many years, the growth is slow. And then when I look at TikTok numbers, for example, TikTok took 19 days to reach 50 million people. Television took 13 years. Telephone took 75 years. So for me, if I'm in the low growth category and I'm trying to reach more households and I have a TikTok of the world growing at 19 days, reaching 50 million households, I have to partner with those big social media companies that are growing really fast. And right now I have to tell you, I'm very, very intrigued with Clubhouse. House is coming really, really fast. And, I'm there already. I know you're there as well. And it's a global platform that I'm very intrigued on how can we use that in the future to monetize and actually, to be frank, even to engage with consumers and learn from consumers in the Clubhouse space.
What was the biggest innovation that you saw early in your career that made you understand that an innovation could come along and disrupt everything that you've learned, how you were trained, how you were educated? I'm excited for your story, but like the stories that excite me is like, I knew how to do it, and then this thing happened, and oh my God, I had to adjust. I'm curious. I feel like people that have gotten to the levels that you've gotten to in their careers have had to be comfortable with that. Otherwise, they would have stayed behind. Anything, do you remember your first big moment with innovation? Like, oh my God, or you believed in it, your seniors didn't, then it became true and you were happy that you were right. Anything like that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm going to date myself here, but that's okay, right? So it used to be so easy to see a media plan, and it was TV, outdoor, radio, and things, right? Print. Yeah. And now we have 3 seconds to deliver our message. So that was the biggest aha for me. And there was a lot of people pushing back on that and putting brand. And we had a chat the other day about that. Brand at minute 1, brand has to be in minute 3, third second, I should say, should be there right away. And I think people didn't see that coming that fast. And I think a lot of CPGs waited too long to engage and actually to drive towards that. So I think that was the biggest shift. We had all this time to
do you think on that front, I'm sorry to interrupt, do you think, because I know a lot of different people are watching, do you think that the agencies, what a lot of people don't know is that there's 5 or 6 big holding companies that own most agencies. It's a little bit of a uniqueness with VaynerMedia. Big shout out to Wyden and Kennedy, also Horizon Media with Bill. There's some bigger players that are independent, but for the most part, the biggest companies in the world work with the biggest 3 or 4 holding companies. Do you think that the agencies have been slow to innovate, and that's why brands are not doing it? Or do you think it's the reverse? Or what's your intuition on that?
I think there has been a lot of resistance on both sides, and we need more marketers like me, I have to say, and some of my friends that are really pushing for that innovation. And as you said, inside the company, but also with the agencies, right? It was very comfortable to be where it was. But if you don't change, it's like commerce, right? If you don't change now, there won't be a business for some of those companies in 10 years. So I think agencies and also internal old-fashioned marketers as well.
As a mother.
Yes. Up to.
What was the innovation that you were most against as your kids were growing up that you now have a different relationship with? Because I think all of us as parents will have 1 or 2 of those historically incorrect because we just love them so much.
That's an easy one. Video games. Relationship of love and hate, right?
Explain.
It's an amazing, for the kids, they are obsessed about that. They spend time doing that. Some of the video games are very scary to me, that, lots of guns and blood and all that. But at the same time, I changed my mind after COVID. And it's been the way.
So just a recent change.
A recent one. It's been applied here in my house. But during COVID, video games are allowing my kids to connect with their friends all over the world. We've moved a lot also, as I was saying. So video games also allows them to be connected to everybody that they know from all the moves and all the changes we've had. So I've started changing my perception on video game with that, because they can keep their connections and their friendship. But now with COVID, and with the limitations of going outside, I think video games have been playing a great role in making them feel that they're close to their friends, they're engaged, and actually a couple of years ago, I was actually partnering with video games and had one of our brands in video games. So I've changed my mind, and I absolutely think it's a great asset. It has to be dosed. It can't be the whole day, but I think it's a great asset. So,
Renata, it's great to see you. Continued success.
Thank you, Gary.
Next, we welcome Casey Herbis, the CMO of Rocket Mortgage, who is driving new innovative strategies, leading a 300-person in-house marketing agency in Detroit. Casey launched Rocket Mortgage's 2 Super Bowl commercials, which claimed the top 2 positions on USA Today's Ad Meter. His leadership helped place Rocket Mortgage into Ad Age's Best Places to Work in the 2021 list. And he came from 24 years in automotive marketing, most recently for Fiat, where he brought the brand to the U.S. Welcome, Casey.
Case, how are you?
Good, man. Good to see you. We need to get you to Detroit here soon.
I'm ready. Brother, I'll go anywhere.
I know.
Point, you know.
Last time I saw you, I think it was the Lions game when Sam Darnold was dropping dimes on us back in the good old days.
That was his first career pass was an interception. That stadium was rocking. Everybody was like throwing garbage at me, and then we luckily had the last laugh that day. Case, before we get into you have so many great innovations. People are exploding on the chat, loving your Super Bowl ads. The innovation of your wardrobe is what I'm passionate about. I said this to you in a private meeting the other day. I just love the way you fucking dress. Talk to me about the creativity of the way you dress. Do you think that inspires? I'm being dead serious now. Do you think it inspires creativity?
I'll tell you, a lot of times, there's no strategy. To me, it's just about, establishing a little bit of the personal brand and bringing some of my personality out. And for me, it helps stifle and bring creativity to the forefront. Like, I should have been wearing my Gary V K-Swiss shoes today. I forgot them. But I got some Yeezys on. I love wearing Yeezys with a suit. And, for me, it kind of like sets the tone. I mean, we're so blessed to work in such a dynamic, creative world, whether you're on the media account or, the business side of it. And so to me, it's the ability to, feel creative and bring it out every single day.
I couldn't agree more. A great comment from First Name, Last Name on YouTube saying that little pink is popping. I agree. Right to the crux of the question for today's show. Where are you trying to innovate in 2021?
Yeah, and a great question, Gary. I mean, I will tell you, when it comes to innovation, a lot of it starts at the very top, and that's culture. You've had a chance to spend time with us in Detroit. Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert started this company 35 years ago as just him, his brother, and a partner, a little mortgage company, outside the city. And now here we are, 20,000 plus in downtown Detroit. And it starts with culture. And Dan, 20 years ago, as he started the company, realized I need to have these foundational principles that let us drive our decision-making, how we conduct ourselves inside, outside the office. I mean, it is, if you think about culture, culture starts to build success. It frames expectations. It delivers creativity. And so for us, we do not sit back. We're America's largest lender, but it is like, I can tell you behind the scenes, it is just thinking about how are we going to continuously innovate, move faster than the speed of the game. And for us, that I think you saw that this past Super Bowl with our creative. That a lot, while brands may be back in the summer, like, should we be in the Super Bowl? Yes, no. Should we be serious? Should we, with our culture and being able, let's go. If we fail fast, learn from those lessons. Being able to innovate, whether it's business, product, client service, or creative, is that's who we are. And it starts at the very beginning, at the top with the culture, and it permeates its way all the way through the organization, and even with our agency partners who we may work with, or media partners. Everybody's got to have a seat at the table when it comes to our business. There are no secrets. I'd rather bring in an agency partner or a media partner early on and help us develop that innovation and bring that idea to marketplace that makes, that can help elevate itself on any specific platform.
I don't know if it was Renata or just your energy or I don't know where I'm at in my mind, but I'm going to ask the question that I want to ask. Do you think your parents were innovative that set you up for success? I'm going very intuitive here right now. I'm sorry to go a little off script.
Let's go back to Casey's childhood.
You kind of motivated me, right? It's culture. It's funny knowing Dan. Maybe it's where I am in my life where I'm like, man, I'm going to have stewards of my companies as I continue to grow. And I'm like listening to you. I'm like, man, I need to have people like this that continue it. If I'm on to, buying Reebok or starting an NFT company, I'm being serious. So I'm just genuinely curious. Innovating from parenthood. You and I are an age group where parenting was going down a very specific book. The way you're just the charisma, the kind of energy you bring. I'm just genuinely curious. Innovation at the parent level. Anything you can tell me? Any insight?
Well, listen, I grew up blue collar kid. Dad was a firefighter. Mom worked at a restaurant. I was the first kid in my extended family to be blessed enough to go to university, the great Michigan State University. And, getting into this business is just like, for me, I've been doing this 28 years and I enjoyed the first 24 in automotive, did a lot of amazing things there. But when I joined this organization 4 years ago, Gary, and again, you've spent time with us, like, it's just so infectious to be in an organization that fosters, innovation, driving the culture inside, outside the walls. I mean, to me, it's just, I wish I found this organization 10, 15 years ago. I got a lot of miles left on these tires, but it's just so exciting to see how we're continuously iterating and thinking about not just what's today, what's going to happen in the financial wellness sector, if you will, this year, next year, 5 years, 10 years down the road. We're working towards that. Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because I think this is where this could get interesting. You have outmaneuvered your competition over the last 35 years. There's just nothing else to say about it. How significant are the conversations and understanding of how powerful the blockchain is going to be in disrupting the mortgage industry? Are those combos, you're in a funny spot when you're the one disrupting and there's an innovation looming that has incredible disruptive powers in its bones. How much is that a combo? Because I think that's where a company like this can get caught. This is cliche. 35 years, you're kind of beating to the punch the incumbents. Meanwhile, there's a complete platform shift thing brewing that may let a new thing happen. I call it put yourself out of business before somebody does it for you. How real of a combo is that case?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of conversations, being America's largest lender for us, it's, there's an old adage too, is when you're the lead dog, you don't want to look behind your shoulder. You got to understand what's right in front of you. There's also an ism. You don't understand what our isms are here is sometimes you got to ignore the noise. So there's a lot of things, maybe disruptions in the marketplace. What we're focused on is we'll understand what those disruptions might be. How could they possibly affect our business? But for us, it's about carving our own path and destiny and making sure that we are just running down that road. And if things happen to, last year, think about the disruption to all of our lives back March and April. Like we literally overnight had a pivot on a dime, and that was totally reactionary. And then once we made sure our team members, our clients were safe, how the hell can we be proactive? So literally in 5 days, Gary, we stood up the nation's largest COVID testing center in downtown Detroit in 5 days, working with the city, helping hospitals. So for us, it's about moving at the speed of the game, pivoting and just going, react. It's think, communicate, and then execute.
Super Bowl is my favorite ad in the world, even though I'm mostly obsessed with digital. You had a big one. How do you think about innovating? Big two. How do you think about innovating in Super Bowl? What's too much innovation? What's not enough innovation? What's the future of Super Bowl spots from your perspective? Any thoughts on that front?
Yeah, great question, Gary. And we've seen it. I mean, you and I sat watching Sunday. There's 57, 58 brands. Almost every brand now has a celebrity in it, which, maybe over time, if we look at it, it wasn't as many. But what I'm finding really interesting is how many brands use celebrity, and maybe they're there just for the sake of being celebrity. I mean, our approach is utilizing the talent. And we've been so fortunate, in my three Super Bowls I've been a part of here, Keegan-Michael Key, Jason Momoa last year, and this year with the awesome, amazing Tracy Morgan, a big Nick and Jets guy, or Giants fan, actually.
Yes, be careful. I'm getting
yeah, that's right. We want to use our talent to help us tell that frame story, the brand story along the way. They help deliver it, and they're not just there for that. So I think you'll start to see brands doing more of that. And then obviously it's a second, third, fourth screen. We had our war room. We had 25 people safely placed in a large room and another 100 behind the scenes, activating not only our two spots, but pre, during, and post. I mean, just the amount of wargaming that needs to take place to pull off a Super Bowl campaign, it just continuously evolves. We weren't thinking about TikTok as a platform last year. Now we are. How do we how do you utilize those TikToks, the emerging, technologies and media platforms to help extend, amplify, the largest investment any brand's going to do, on a one night standpoint.
Case, with the final seconds, the favorite innovation that struck you as a human in the last year? New platform, new app, new anything. 30 seconds on your favorite innovation.
Well, good question. 30 seconds for me. Biggest innovation the last few years. I will tell you, this is not innovation, but for me, it's an innovation in that I've never worked from home in 25 years. And now I have found myself, I'm paperless. So I used to I look like, I was a hoarder of paper. Now I'm paperless. So for me, it's sometimes when there's a crisis, it develops an opportunity. And for us, it was I found the crisis, found the opportunity. And for me, it's I've innovated myself and from a work standpoint, leadership. So
thanks for being on, brother.
See you, buddy.
Next, we welcome Lisa Joy Rossner, SVP Brand and Digital Marketing, who claimed an entirely new role at Oracle focused all on content. Lisa Joy is a Silicon vet, having worked in data and analytics her entire career. She lives by her mantra, "Tell me it can't be done and I'll do it," birthing 4 children in 4 years while launching 2 startups. Welcome, Lisa Joy.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Lisa Joy, you're like a superhero. 2 companies, 4 children, 4 years. I think I go at it. That's incredible. It's great to have you here.
Well, thank you. It's funny listening to that. I was thinking about, we had 4 kids in diapers, and I was in the middle of launching this big social media company. And we also had 8 puppies at that time. And here we are in the middle of the apocalypse. And now not 8 kids in diapers, but 4 kids going through puberty. and we got 9 chickens. So it's
really going at it.
And instead of doing a startup, doing this just monumental shift in a company like Oracle.
Let's go to that. Knowing a little bit about your background, coming into something so big, and then really focusing on, brand and digital marketing. How are you trying to innovate the math? How are you trying to innovate the magic or the art that is required to be a storyteller in 2021? Because I'm sure that's what you're balancing.
Well, that's an amazing question. So let me talk about the art first.
Please.
The art is the voice of the customer. Oracle historically has led with talking about our products instead of the amazing work that we do for our customers. And so the magic has been, we've surveyed over 20,000 customers in 19 different languages. I've personally interviewed, many, at least 25 different customers. And we are taking that voice of the customer and infusing it into everything we do. So that's the magic. The math.
Lisa Joy, excuse me for a second. So from your standpoint on that, us, all who are watching, we're going to connect more with what you've enabled more so than the information of the tool that's enabling it. Is that how you see it?
Wait, say that again?
Well, if it's through the voice of the customer, right? The stories of the customer, of the people that are actually using these incredible tools, that is more of a connection point than utility nature. The stories of the people using the utility more than utility, right? The carpenter story inherently is more interesting than the hammer and the screwdriver.
Absolutely. So you look at someone like Land O'Lakes, we're during the pandemic and having to completely change their supply chain, and where with all this baking that we're all doing, they have to get more butter to supermarkets faster. So instead of talking about supply chain and ERP, we're talking about that butter that's going into that apple pie that you're baking right now. Does that make sense? So that's the content. And the thing that I wanted to talk about today, which Will.i.am mentioned, is AI. And so the thing that I'm really excited about from an innovation perspective is an AI. So to answer your question about the math part of it, our AI is incredibly sophisticated, and there's some things I'd love to talk about if we have time.
Please.
But there's a whole new approach to analytics that one of our guys calls it augmented analytics. So for example, you can actually talk to the system and say, hey, tell me how much butter we're selling. Tell me the stores where we're selling more butter, right? Or tell me the stores that are buying the most butter. And then the AI can go and say, well, not only are they buying butter, but they're also buying sour cream.
Right. It's that next true, and you know this because you're grounded more in tech. People talk about AI and ML and things of that nature. But when you really look under the hood, these startups or things of that nature, they're far from that. What you just described is actual intelligence. I asked this question about butter in stores. They said, that's cute, Gary. Here's the information. But let me also tell you that a third of those people pick up flowers at the register. What do you think about that? I'm like, oh, shit, computer. I think that's crazy. Let me do this.
Well, so let's talk about this a little bit more because Please. AI is no longer fake news. So I have some mind-blowing stats for you. Go. We just did this survey, the division that has human resources products. And we surveyed consumers, lots of people are very depressed right now. And we asked them all these questions around mental health. Okay, are you ready, Garrett? 82% of people who are dealing with mental health issues right now during this apocalypse would rather talk to a robot than to their boss.
There's a lot of shitty bosses out there, Lisa.
Well, you're right.
And I mean that. I mean, talking about real innovation. If bosses started thinking that they work for their employees instead of the other way around, fucking computers wouldn't be winning this poll.
So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, but keep going. I
couldn't agree with you more, but the point
I just couldn't let that one go because it devastates me.
Well, and so you were talking with Rihanna about technology. So my kids don't have cell phones. Terrible, mean mother that I am. But the other day I heard my kid, I was like, she sounds like she's talking on the phone. And she was actually sitting and talking to Alexa. They were telling each other jokes. So she'd rather sit and talk to the human than one of her siblings. And Alexa is not even that smart. Our Oracle AI is really, really smart. And so why would people rather talk to a robot? Well, yes, they have shitty bosses, but also because of where AI is right now, they're learning the patterns. They can have that conversation and be empathetic and not be burdened by having a bad day, right? And so what is that telling us? That's telling us that we are ready to add conversations to marketing. So I have another really interesting thing to tell you that is really funny. Because you asked me about the data side of it. The data side, of course, is going to be your CRM. And the current state of CRMs, we did this other survey, 66% of sales professionals would rather clean their toilet than fill in their CRM system. Right?
First of all, I love the fact that you're making the questions romantic in real life. That being said, cleaning a toilet is actually quite relaxing, Lisa Joy. I don't know if you know that. I'm being dead serious.
Okay, I feel that way about laundry because I feel like a huge sense of accomplishment and look how perfectly folded everything is and all the drawers are tidy. Toilet cleaning, not that much.
Not so much?
Not that much. I mean, I will clean the toilets, but I do not enjoy it.
The manual filling out is, as the Oracle AI gets stronger and stronger, we're not going to have to do that crap.
Well, you could just talk to it. Mm-hmm. Right? And as a sales leader, you can say, tell me who my top performing reps are. What's the probability that we're going to hit our numbers?
Joy, on that note, because you're doing it from a B2B front, you referenced Alexa, which is more of a B2C. Obviously, all the big tech companies are working on this. I'm just, I really value your opinion. Your gut, and this is hard. This is a hard question. Your gut to when us humans are interacting with an AI voice consumer facing tool like you're referring to, where we're really doing damage, right? You and I are hanging out. We're like, let's order some sushi. And instead of going to a phone and going to an app, which seems revolutionary by 25 years ago, I'm going to be like, blank, pick what company you want or what name they call it. Send me the best sushi currently in the city. And pick the things I want or things I like or things like this, or no uni. I'm an uni guy, so extra uni. How far away are we from that nirvana that is obvious? What's your gut tell you on when that's a real scenario?
5 years.
Really, that quickly, you think, right?
I'd be even closer, possibly. It depends on our listeners and how much of early adopters they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
really you think,
it's really that close. So I'm
sorry to interrupt. Like you think I'm just going to keep asking because you're going to know better than I am. I'll just use Alexa. Hey, Alexa, or hey, Oracle. Hey, Oracle, get me the best seat to the highest ranking play in New York City now. You feel like, go ahead.
Yes. So I went and met with our development team yesterday, and they showed me, hey, Alexa, find me a coffee shop that is not Starbucks. And Alexa said, here are all the Starbucks. Hey, Oracle, find me the coffee shops that are not Starbucks. Well, here's the Tullys, and here's the Coffee People, and here's your local store. And I was blown away to see that. So it's already like we have the capability now.
Do you, Oracle, have the consumer capability to make a consumer product and market it and get it adopted is the question in that game.
No, but we can help we're a B2B company, but we can help our consumer customers use this technology to deliver those. Inside. Yep, exactly. Can I tell you one more thing?
Real fast.
I'm super excited.
I like the way you.
You're gonna love this.
Go.
You're gonna love this. I wish this was a month from now
because
we can't talk about it yet.
But kind of give us the secret. Just give it to us.
For me as a marketer, we're using AI in something that's revolutionary. Where normally sports marketing is slapping your logo up on a stadium, which we also do, but we're going to be using our AI in sports broadcast. So real time, an athlete's about to make a point, and up is going to be a little cloud that says what the probability is that they're going to make it.
Oh, that's cool.
So really cool. So we're not just doing brand marketing with pictures. We're actually showing how our technology works. And that kind of storytelling is what really fills me up.
Mrs. Joy, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Next, we welcome Adam Braun, New York Times bestselling author, speaker, entrepreneur, and founder of Pencils of Promise, the award-winning nonprofit that has built more than 500 schools globally. Adam was also co-founder and CEO of Mission U, a higher education startup named one of Fast Company's 50 most innovative companies before being acquired by WeWork. Adam has been featured as a speaker in the White House, the United Nations, and the Clinton Global Initiative. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
Adam.
Hey, Gary.
How are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well. I should disclose that I've been a very, very proud board member for quite a long time and adore this human being quite a bit. So this may be a very soft, kind of sweet interview, but I'll try to get some juice out of it. Adam, how are you as a human thinking about innovation in 2021? Maybe as a parent, as a friend, as an operator. When I just throw that out to you, where do you go?
Yeah, it's a couple different threads for me right now. I think, one of them is Pencils of Promise, for those who aren't familiar, we're, a global, what we think of as a for-purpose 501c3 nonprofit organization that builds schools, provides access to quality teacher training and really wraparound support for students across Asia, Africa, and Central America. And as was mentioned at the start, we've now built more than 500 schools around the world. We serve about 100,000 students daily. And Gary's been, an incredible, not just, friend to the organization, but when I asked him to get involved, he said, Adam, if I'm going to do this, I'm going all in. And so he's been a member of our board of directors, and an incredible one at that. And, truthfully, Gary, this whole last year has kind of brought me back to the beginning of when Pencil of Promise was created, because I founded the organization in October of 2008. It was, I believe, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy. And, there was this feeling at the time that the kind of institutions that everyone looked at with such reverence that were kind of untouchable, that suddenly not just one, but then multiple toppled. And as much as there was a lot of sadness and, people were losing jobs, you and I were both in New York at the time. And, it was a really difficult moment culturally. But in that kind of darkness, there was 2 things that I observed that I'm now seeing again. The first is just an explosion of innovation, of willingness to try new things, of kind of, dissipation of fear that existed beforehand, that people are suddenly saying, I got nothing to lose. And so I'm willing to try something. And then the second is, I think in hard moments, people gravitate towards the good, and they seek out opportunities to be a part of something that's a little bit bigger than themselves, that can, maybe focus a little bit more on creating legacy. And as I look at kind of the rebound from 2020, now hopefully an upswing into 2021, I feel like I'm seeing that. I feel like, there's just a willingness to try new things and ideally align those new things with creation of good. And, whether it's in my role as a parent to young twins or, in my role as executive chairman at Pencils of Promise, I'm excited about the willingness to try new things. And our gala last year, that, you were a huge driver of how we not only crafted it, but then in the execution of it, I think it was a perfect example of that.
It's funny. Two of the people in my life, that I think of as most thoughtful on this exact show. We started this show today with will.i.am, and I think he's just quite thoughtful in the time I spent. I think the same about you. Is there, from that thoughtfulness lens, since you both were on, and I was just thinking about it, has this time being down, at least not moving physically, allowed you to think more, and has that led to learning about more innovations? It just struck me.
100%. I mean, you know this, but for those who aren't familiar, I normally live in the New York area, and in consideration of the fact that preschool was potentially going to go remote again, the uncertainty of what the academic year looked like, I relocated with my wife and little kids to the top of Powder Mountain in Utah. And right now behind me on this screen is, an expansive series of mountains. I'm at 9,000 feet of elevation. And, when you kind of forcibly put yourself in places like this, whether it's physically or mentally, you just start, being a little bit more patient in ways that you probably weren't historically, or at least that I was. And what it leads to is I find, I feel like I'm thinking bigger thoughts. I'm looking at longer time horizons. The commitment to the next week is still there, but my mind is also really thinking about the commitment to the next decade. And, I remember one of our board members previously, the great Ray Chambers, challenged me many years ago when I was asking him, how do I push this organization forward? How do we do great work? How do we impact more kids? And he said, Adam, if I was you, I would look at, your abilities, your relationships, where you want to focus your energy, but I would also think about where the world is going to go in the next 5 years, and how can you align those two things to really intersect. And that's how I'm thinking about all the different parts. I said this to some of the Pencil Promise, board members previously, and I'm totally comfortable sharing it publicly. The world looked very different in 2008 when the organization was started, and the goal was to build as many schools as we could. And now I think a lot about not just how do we push, our scale to be faster, but how do we make it smarter? How do we,
more impact, right? This is something we talk all the time. Impact, right?
Exactly. And
by the way, you're, as executive chair, your DNA is so still in the thing that you created. You're a different man. I mean, as soon as you said that the world looks so different, in my own head, because I'm trying not to interrupt here because people get mad, but I only have 10 minutes. I'm trying to get the things. But I said to myself, you're different.
Very, very. I mean, I didn't have kids at the time, right? I mean, the difference between rationally thinking about what do I want for the well-being of a child versus now as a parent thinking about how do I want my kids to experience education, and then how do I apply that to the attainment of education for kids around the world who might not have access to it otherwise. It's just a totally different lens. And, I think at the same time, we've always been very brand-centric as an organization. Yes. And I think the success of our brand has really been rooted in authenticity more than anything else. And that's something that I think you and I have always really kind of connected on. Yeah.
Let's have a little friendship chat.
Yeah.
You were the human outside the arena of pop and, have you picked up video games? Are you watching more Netflix, like Clubhouse, TikTok, the innovation lens of you, my buddy?
Yeah.
Like if it's just me and you right now catching up, I'm like, hey, just doing my own research because, I love this shit. Like, what have you been hot on from an innovation standpoint, or what blew you away, or what's going on in this mountain now? Do they deliver hot cocoa in 1 second if you hit a button? Like, what innovations struck you in these last 2 minutes? Just some fun.
Sure. So, I was really, probably like you, one of the kind of earlier people that were fortunate to get an invite onto Clubhouse. And I spent some time on it. And then I thought, this is just taking me away from being present with the people in front of me. And I kind of stepped away, and I didn't use it for months. But I recently got invited into a room, like a session that was being run. And man, I was blown away by just the connective tissue that was being experienced across totally different parts of a subsector of an industry.
It's like those old jam sessions that we used to do.
100%. That has been a big part for me. I think another one is, I feel like to some extent I've like reconnected with the value of text and WhatsApp chains. Like before they weren't as kind of, I don't know, it was like more one-on-one connection. But just, I think the social isolation.
Like everybody misses socialization. So you got your high school crew, your basketball crew.
Exactly. My fantasy football league, the amount of chatter. My last year, my main social experience was a WhatsApp chain from my fantasy football league, which is college friends. And so I think that's been a big one. And then at the same time, I always had a mindfulness and meditation practice, but in the last year, I've really been able to lean into it and spend a lot more time on it. There's a whole bunch of apps out there, but I'll give a shout out. There's one called Shine. I have no affiliation to it, but I discovered it through.
Say it one more time. I didn't hear it.
It's called Shine.
Spell it.
Shine. 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 And then another one I just met the entrepreneur on a chairlift the other day. It's called Breathwork, and it's kind of like a modified version of full meditation. It's
I know them very well. I love them. Adam, I love you more. We'll talk soon.
Next, we welcome Mayur Gupta, Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer of Gannett, USA Today Network. Mayur leads a team of marketers, growth hackers, and data scientists to drive the company's transformation from a news and media platform to a digital content subscription marketplace. Previously, Mayur has held top roles at Freshly, Spotify, Kimberly-Clark, and Sapient Nitro, and is a serial investor in a long list of startups. If he wasn't leading the transformation at Gannett, he would be playing cricket for India or tennis for the USA. Welcome, Mayur.
Mayur, how are you, man?
I'm great, Gary. Big fan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so mad. I wanted to say it first. I really admire you. We haven't had a chance to jam, but I'm hoping this is a starting point. So this feels extra for me, because I do think I really respect from afar your points of view by your actions, investments, and things that you've done. I'm dying to know what actually, even like both, give me both. You at Gannett, which is such a classic company. I think that's cool. I've long said I want to buy nostalgic brands and reboot them. To me, the transformation of something is more interesting than starting something from fresh. Actually, let's stay there, because I wonder if that's, I just saw your reaction. So I wonder if that kind of like was attractive to you as well, sir.
Well, it was scary and attractive, to be very, very candid. I sat on the board of Gannett for almost 2 years. That gave me the insight into the value system and the belief system of the company, and also where the bodies were buried. So it wasn't ambiguous to me. But like you said, I spent a big part of my career in very growth stage startups, have seen them scale up, and I've been very grateful and fortunate. This is an opportunity, Gary, to work at an organization which has a 100-year-old legacy and a purpose and mission that could not be stronger and could not be needed at a more appropriate time than right now, where local communities need information and news that you can trust. But many organizations haven't evolved as fast as the world had changed. So I felt that the real challenge for me personally, which is what made me jump over, was, can I bring everything that I have learned through the failures and the mistakes I've made to bring that rigor, the disruption, the self-disruption, the pace, removing the fear of failure in a huge organization with almost 20,000 people, because that's magical with high risk. But if you pull it off in our transformation from a legacy media business that is obsessed with traffic and audience to a content subscription business that is obsessed with customer value, that will be a fantastic experience and a lot to learn.
When did innovation hit your radar? How young, and what was it that hooked you into technology innovation? Not technology like it was the first. I think I want to make sure I land this question. It's not like you grew up with this. Oh, you liked video games right away. I'll give you an example. When I saw Nintendo after playing Atari, the jump was so big that I couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm like, oh, things can happen like this in my life, because I was 10 or 11 at the time. I'm like, things will happen like this. And then obviously the internet was the next big one I just couldn't even comprehend. For you, when was the first time that innovation hit you?
So, well, first of all, I grew up in India. And when I was growing up, unless you were really smart, so I didn't fall into that category. If you wanted a job, you did computer science. So I became an engineer, did computer science, got my job. So I break my career apart in two phases, Gary. Phase one, where I was a hammer. I was writing code. I was an architect, then got into product development in the mid 2000s. But I was still a hammer, a good hammer, and I was looking for nails all around. The pivot for me where innovation, even the word made sense, was in the second half of my career when I finally left my alma mater almost, which was Sapien Nitro, where I learned everything, and my foundation is still there. But when I joined Kimberly-Clark, it was the first time after 12 years, I kind of left the gym to get into a tournament. That is when I finally understood that, look, the solve was not technology. The solve was the application of technology and data to change a human behavior that prevented your growth.
Wait, how many people do you think missed that point?
9.9 out of 10.
It's funny because you just summed up why I think things have worked for me. I've understood the human part and stayed dangerous enough to understand the tech part.
Yes.
But that was the commodity, while all my tech friends thought that, and I was like, that was humans.
And I feel that there are so many shiny disco balls that we all have, whether it is data or even insight, let alone technology. The focus for the world today, even for our children, I know you have kids and I have two daughters, it's all about not as much knowing everything, but it is how do you apply when you know it? Because knowledge is commodity, application is where creativity and data and science and design kinds of comes together.
100%. So what is the challenge in front of you? What is the real first tangible, practical thing that you're like, I need to address this?
Yeah. Yes. See, for us, of course, there is a list of a lot of exciting tech channels, content, all that stuff. But I think what is most fundamental for me and the organization is that underlying mindset evolution and shift to create a belief system that thinks that the only way for us to win is when you run faster than the competition. Everything else is commodity.
Stay right there.
Yeah.
Coming from you, I know my audience. I know how I communicate. I love this. You just articulated the value of speed. I really need you to say that again, because I know I have a mix of youth, entrepreneur, I'm going to do it for me, or I want to leave my job or get a new job, or a lot of senior marketers. The fact that you said basically what I've been living my whole life, which is the speed is binarily the variable, because you'll get to the answer of no quicker while people debate if they can find yes.
Yes. And that's single-handedly. And I learned that at Spotify. I learned that from the founder of Spotify, Daniel, who firmly believed that even though at that scale of Spotify, which was already humming, but we still knew we weren't fast enough. And I know that.
As a matter of fact, he knew. When did you come into Spotify? How many years in?
In 2016. So that was the 9th year at Spotify Genesis.
So he said Daniel, and I know Daniel a little bit. The reason he felt that is, people come into VaynerMedia right now, they're like, this is so fast. And I'm like, we're slow as shit. Daniel knows that at year 9, you guys were much, much slower than what he felt in the first 4 years.
Because most people are trying to protect what they have.
Defense.
Not trying to think about what they don't, because I feel, and this is our startup journey, what I have, one of my biggest lessons learned has been the biggest barrier for companies to move forward is their past success. Because the levers that have got you this far may not, and most often will not be the levers that will get you forward.
100, literally. Jesus. Now, sometimes when, usually this happens in person. It's happening right here. You have those meetings where you finally meet somebody that from afar, you're like, there's a lot, right? I'm like, I'm just enjoying myself. I literally tell everybody the single thing that is about to put you out of business is the thing that got you to
that got you where you are.
100%.
Yeah.
What can people do? Like, help everybody here in the last minute and a half. As a person that works somewhere, as an entrepreneur, as a key executive, since we're so aligned, I just want to hear your version on, okay, let's say they just believe us because they can see the conviction in our eyes.
Yeah.
What do you do?
It is contribute in creating an environment that is safe to begin with, right? Where people feel that I'm not going to be judged, where you remove the fear of failure. And, it's taken me many years and a lot of mistakes. The only way you do that is not by telling them, hey, you can fail and it doesn't matter. It's by showing that you yourself are failing.
And being huge on accountability.
Absolutely.
When you're accountable to your losses, not just, when you're accountable.
Yes.
It inspires incredible safety.
Absolutely. And that single-handedly, Gary, is what I feel creates ultimately that environment where people thrive. And you got to create a culture with trust and transparency where people learn.
How do you do that if the ultimate boss isn't that human?
Well, then you got to be art and science. Create proofs. Prove it. Take baby steps, right? The challenge is people think on day one, how do I solve scale problem? The only way you solve scale is when you don't solve for scale.
Correct. You can't boil the ocean.
Yes, you can boil. And that's the thing. You got to put points on the board, incremental steps.
I'm so pissed you have to go and I have to go. Andrea will beat me up. So I apologize, but Maria, we've got to continue this. Love you, man. This was fantastic.
Shit.
Next, we welcome Gregory Constantine, an award-winning businessman, product developer, and entrepreneur. He is co-founder and CEO of Air Company, using technology and creativity to help decarbonize the planet. The company is applying its technology in a number of verticals, including spirits, fragrance, and renewable fuels. Air Company has been awarded Time Magazine's Invention of the Year, NASA's CO2 Challenge winner, and many others. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Gary, I'm sorry that you're pissed you had to leave that last one, mate.
It was good, right?
It was good. It really was.
Good news.
Solve for scale without solving for scale.
That's it, man. And guess what? This one I've been looking forward to because this one's the one I'm going to be the most quiet because I have so much to learn and I'm so intrigued and interested. I only want to get my core question out besides the official question, which is, how is your hair so fucking brilliant? I need it, Greg. I need the details. Grandmother, shampoo, grandmother's DNA. I need the actual answer, my man.
Greek and Lebanese Australian. It's that Mediterranean blood, mate.
It's good. If I had your hair, I would dominate the world.
Take that beanie off. Let's see what you're working with.
I got nothing, brother. It's going away. It's going all over the place. I'll say, so let's go into it. How are you? Actually, let's do 3 minutes on what you all do, because I think people are going to love it.
Yeah, for sure. We turn carbon dioxide, the most abundant greenhouse gas on planet Earth, causing climate change, into products that are hopefully better than their predecessors. So rather than use the word kind of disruption, we always just talk about innovation. How do you go and create something better than before that isn't harmful to the planet? It's actually helpful to the planet.
Give me your journey on this. You, the human.
Yeah, for sure. This is actually my first company. I met my business partner, Stafford, who's our co-founder and CTO, in a bar overseas. We were on a leadership trip overseas. We met in a bar. We were both working, in separate endeavors at that same time, and we just became friends. We became really good friends, and we kind of really bonded over our love for innovation. And we really, chose a path, not the path of least resistance. We chose the path of pretty much the hardest resistance in trying to create something that hasn't been created before and trying to innovate in an industry that wasn't necessarily being spoken about at that period in time. And at the moment we're really focused on taking CO2 and turning it into things that can be helpful. So we've launched a couple products in the interim, one being a vodka that did win Time Magazine's Invention of the Year last year. And then we put out a sanitizer during COVID.
Break down the vodka or the sanitizer so people actually understand how this works.
Yeah, we take carbon dioxide, that's either in the atmosphere or about to be emitted to the atmosphere, and we combine it with hydrogen that we create ourselves, all powered by renewable electricity. Our facility is in Brooklyn, New York City. And when those two things combine together within our piece of technology, the reaction that's caused creates ethanol, which is a type of alcohol. Spirits like vodka, as you know, having run a liquor store, are alcohol and water. That's what vodka is. So the way that we make our vodka, we remove a pound of carbon dioxide for every liter that we create. And because we're not making it from fermentation, from corn or grains, there's no impurities in it at all. So it's really, really ultra pure. So it's fantastic for consumption as well.
Greg, what do naysayers, I think when you're doing this kind of innovation, right, it always comes with naysayers. What's the naysayer's point of view and what's your rebuttal?
Yeah, the naysayer's point of view is it's not real. How can two 30-something-year-old, folks do this if people have tried over so many years of time as well?
Has it been that big of a challenge scientifically?
Yeah, we're definitely standing on the shoulders of giants for sure, and people who have tried. But that's really just a testament to Stafford, whose brilliance in the science, and then I think our amazing team and their brilliance in making people think that it's beautiful and making people know that it's sexy and that the product is great. Because when you're trying to do something new and quote unquote sustainable, you really want the product to speak for itself first as well.
What was the most difficult part of this innovation? Obviously, I know Stafford is the CTO, but obviously as a co-founder and CEO, you're clearly aware, even if you weren't fully touching it. What was the most difficult part? Or not even the science. What about that beer you're having 7 months in where it's like really not moving? Maybe it was an emotional or mental hurdle. Thoughts?
Yeah, one of the trickiest ones is actually, having people understand what you do. And this comes down to what you're talking about in terms of marketing, right? It's like, how do you take what's typically known as a really, really heavy piece of technology and science and make it palatable for people to understand? We're able to make this technology palatable by creating a product and showcasing that product. But there are so many amazing technologies out there in the world that don't see the light of day because the technologist isn't being able to be met with, the marketing of the business.
Consumer centrality, right?
Totally.
And is that why you both felt that way about each other? You two as founders represented one and the other?
Yeah, it's the yin and yang for sure. Completely opposite skill sets that when you bring them together, they're like that perfect kind of marriage as well. So yeah, we really think that's why it works all together, and hopefully
Let's talk about speed. We talked about speed in the last one. Hand sanitizer. The world does its thing. Yeah. How quickly? I could see it from a mile away, the story already, which is why I think I'm going down that path. Yeah. How quickly from, oh shit, there's a global pandemic to in market or in R&D? Tell me through that story, because I think that will resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. So we were the first company in the US to announce the switch to sanitizer before everyone did. Stafford and I were together, and we just saw the way that the world was progressing, and we saw, look, hey, we really think that things are going to get progressively worse. How can we help? What's the thing that we can do, right? We know that we can make alcohol that can help. So let's go out and do it. And, granted, we're making it on small scales, but we're still able to go out and pivot the business really quickly. But again, it's having the right team to be able to do so, to be able to flip that switch straight away and go from making vodka to making sanitizer, get the packaging, get it out the door, and be able to help people. So speed is absolutely imperative. 3 rules of innovation: first, best, and only. You've got to be all 3 at one period in time. You might go down, but speed is fully a part of that.
First, best, and only. You can be first. You control that narrative. Best is often subjective and takes time to, right? And only probably goes away very quickly. How do you deal when, I think a lot of people here struggle with that last part. So I'm a big fan of first. I want to be best, but I know that movie has to play out. Yeah. But where I think I've been able to succeed, and what I admire in others that can succeed, is not being crippled by when I'm not the only. I've watched so many people get upset as if they have the rights to the idea in the world when others come on board. Thoughts from your perspective of innovating the mindset of not dwelling when bigger, maybe you perceive better, newer, many competitors come into an innovation. Thoughts on that, Greg? Because I think I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. Competition is healthy. You should always look at that as a positive, right? If someone else is trying to do what you're trying to do, you've done it and they've seen it and now they think it's, so you look at it as a great way. And on top of that, you got to understand that, everyone is going to push everyone else forward as well, right? We always say that, we're trying to do something in the hope that other people try to do either the same thing or try to do things around it, because for what we're trying to do from a climate and sustainability and environmental point of view, we can't do it alone. So we love it, right? And we think competition is great and that it's going to move the world forward.
Final thoughts on innovation while I got it for a minute?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing for us this year is trying to make sustainability sexy, right? It's trying to make it cool, right?
For whom, Greg? Because I think you're dominating, that story's dominating under 30. Are you referring to above that? Or are you trying to put the nail, you want to make that cool a little more sustainable under 32, because there's real surface, I spent a lot of time with the kids, as they say, and after the opening line of like, yay, they don't realize the hypocrisy in their actions day to day. So is it deepening education where there's openness, and is there education on even creating the openness above that?
Yeah, we need corporate on your side as well, because that's what's really going to help push the needle forward. The education's there and it's going to continue to be there, and companies like this will continue to crop up. But if we can see it from the top down as well, that's where real change is going to happen, and it needs to happen as well.
I love it. Thank you so much for your efforts.
Appreciate it, Gary.
Cheers.
Last but not least, we welcome Carla Hassan, Chief Marketing Officer of Citi. Carla oversees Citi's branding and sponsorships, global consumer banking marketing, and its institutional client groups marketing and sponsorships. Previously, Carla held C-suite roles at Toys R Us, PepsiCo, the Kellogg Company, and more. Carla serves on the advisory board of the ANA's #SeeHer initiative and was named an Ad Age Woman to Watch. Welcome, Carla.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Man, to hearing that about me, I think that just means I'm old. More than anything else, all those things.
Carla, we're such friends that I get to hang out with you with different lighting, and like you really brought it today. Looking good.
Listen, come on, I'm live with you. Are you kidding me? You've seen me at my worst, Gary.
Which is my favorite because maybe first of all, I love all the natural stuff, and second of all, I think you're the best. And I love you and your husband, your daughter. Big fan. Of you, the human, first, second, third, fourth, but then number 5, the marketer. And so let's focus on the marketer side.
Let's do it.
What are you trying to innovate?
Oh, Gary, I've been thinking about this word. It is so big. It's so big. There's so many ways into this conversation. I want to go to 2 places.
Please.
The first is digital innovation. I can't have the role that I am at the firm that I work at and not talk about digital innovation. And it's really interesting. If small story. When COVID first hit, we had so many consumers that have never actually deposited a check on their phone.
Right.
And, now they're afraid, right? Now they're afraid and they're like, I can't go into a bank, or the bank is closed. I can't do it. And so they have no choice. They've got to do it. Once they figured out that they could do that, and it was a seamless transaction, and that they trusted that their money actually was in their account, there's just no going back, right? There's no going back. And so the pace at which
once you see it, you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it. And actually, once you do it, you can't undo it, right? Like literally once you experience that and you're like, wait a minute, the money's there, just like they said it was going to be. Why would I actually ever go back into a retail location? Like literally, why would I ever walk there, particularly now? And that, I think that little story is just a microcosm of everything we're seeing, right? And so from our perspective, it is so important to not just kind of say, oh yeah, digital innovation is important for us, but to actually live it. And so what it's doing is it's actually creating these really unlikely partnerships. So Google, historically we might have seen as a competitor, right? Like tech is a competitor, particularly when you're, a financial services organization. But we recently announced a partnership with them because we felt like we just had to lean in. And so from an innovation perspective, particularly on the digital side, what it's doing is it's bringing their best-in-class user experience, if you will, and their technology, and our best-in-class know-how on banking. It's bringing them together, and now we're able to access access an entire group of people that we never, ever, ever would have been able to access if it was Citi going out to them and saying, hey, open a bank account, right? Like, or open a savings account. Or, I mean, it really puts the power of the two together. So for me, digital innovation has been really leaning into the most unlikely of people, and then also, or of partners, and then also thinking about like, what are the major behaviors that are changing and never going back, and how can we get at that as fast as possible? So I would say that that's the first part. And the second is innovation and thinking. I think, I've heard, Greg, a fellow Lebanese, you talked about his hair. You didn't talk about mine, Gary, but it's all good. It's all good.
I gave you such compliments up front. Come on. What do you want?
I'm totally kidding. But it's not just about the technical know-how. I think when we think about innovation, we have got to start thinking about how do we think about innovative thinking? How do we think about flexibility and agility and taking chances, for crying out loud? And by the way, in my world, hard to do, right? Because we are in a regulated environment.
And do you think, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Do you believe that the blockchain DeFi thing is going to force, that's going to be such a big combo that, do you think that in a weird, I mean, that's for another day.
Right.
Do you believe that because that's going to be in the air, that it might give you as a marketer more room? Because now all of a sudden what they might have seen as crazy, well, that's minor compared to what's going on over here. Do you feel like, yeah, I kind of see it.
We're already seeing it. We're already seeing it, Gary. And it's not even just from, again, like innovation, like what you're talking about in whether it's platforms or systems or even the way that money's moved around, whatever, but it's also in what we're seeing in communities. It's all of it. And so how do we really take some chances, get a little braver in the way that we're thinking, experiment a little bit more, which again is hard. It's hard.
Paint a picture for everybody. What would be considered something experimental from your point of view in your seat?
Okay, let me give you an example. I'll give you an example of something that we just lived actually with racial equity. We had developed something that, from a campaign perspective, or even like how we're talking about it, would just be, I would say, for some people, controversial, right? So we took a stand on something, we created some work, and it wasn't without its controversy internally, not because we didn't have the same values that we were talking about, but because people are like, well, using this kind of language or making these kind of stands, like, we've got constituents from both sides, right? You got to be careful. And so I thought, okay, but we got to push this because it's the right thing to do. And so we experimented in a controlled environment. We're able to see, like, if we put this message out, what are people going to say? And so we did that. We put it out and we got great feedback. We got some naysayers, there's no doubt about it, but we got really good feedback. And then we're comfortable enough to say, all right, now how do we take it and really explode it on a broader level? I think things like that, and I've heard a couple of folks already talk about it, this notion of like, you've got to just try to do things incrementally. Don't try to boil the ocean, because you've got a whole bunch of naysayers around you that you're not going to be able to convince if you try to convince them with the really big thing. So go, do.
Is that something that everybody who's listening now, even if they have, even if they're not the boss of the boss of the boss, do you think that general thesis of like that incremental, even like as a conversation, like I actually have a very important question I think can help a lot of people, which is what I'm focused on right now when I do these kind of things. Do you believe that you are in this spot in your career because you were willing to politely or politically correctly communicate when you didn't agree with what the senior things were going on? I'm actually I think people need
100%, Gary, 100%. And I do think no matter who you are, no matter what level you are in an organization, this is actually interesting, right, to correlate with innovation, because we all talk about innovation as like the product or the platform or whatever. We miss the innovation in thinking. We miss the innovation in how you talk to somebody. There is a game in that. Like, there is a hustle in that, right? How do you talk to people differently? How do you get your point across? How do you put yourself in somebody else's shoes to know that they're looking at a very different KPI than you are? So how do you, in your head, on the spot, think about how to talk to them differently? And so I think, by the way, that my team uses it on me all the time, right?
You can see it.
They use it on me all the time. I can see it coming, and I actually love it. I love it.
By the way, same as me. I always look this way, and I'm like, I know what you're doing, and I love that you're doing that, so I'm going to reward that. Oh, I know what you're doing. I don't like that. I'm not going to reward.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And, it's interesting to your point about I'm in a certain position in my career where I
don't think on that. I apologize, Carla, because I just try to think of all 2 hours, what value we can bring for everybody who's been here the whole time. Do you then say what we just said here, that maybe innovation of taking people realizing that EQ, not IQ, maybe, do you feel like the innovation of the conversation around emotional intelligence as leaders needs to be a conversation, period, to even begin to do the tangible part?
100%. And you know what? We talk about it today as empathy, right? Like you talk about it a lot too. We all talk about it as empathy. And it's such it used to be an under leveraged word and underappreciated word. And now everyone's trying to figure out what the hell it means, right? But the reality is it's in its simplest form is put yourself in someone else's shoes, know where they're coming from. And then you can solve problems for them and with them, in some cases without even letting them know that it was your idea. That, to me, to your point, the EQ of that and the innovation of the thinking is equally as important as, yes, there's all kinds of stuff happening from a product standpoint that we've got to stay in touch with, that we've got to stay on top of, that's making us braver, that's making us more courageous and more innovative faster. But that part of it, the EQ part of it, is so underrated. And people don't think about it enough. And I think using that more and more, that muscle more and more, helps you get to the product part, helps you get to the ultimate goal that you talked about.
I love you. I know it goes so fast.
Thank you. I know. Thank you.
Andrea, take us home.
All right. Thanks, Gary. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. We've got another show coming up March 18th from 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And our central question is going to be, how are you growing your customers into fans in 2021?
Like fans.
Hashtag marketing for the now. Let's keep the conversation going. Check out our past recordings and info on marketing for the now on Vaynerx.com. And we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, all of you, for the 2 hours. It was a real marathon. I love all of you. Thank you for all the comments. Great chatter. Hit me up on Twitter with your feedback. Hashtag marketing for the now. I'll look at it right now in between meetings. Love you. See ya. Love you. See ya. Thank you, Andrea and team. Jordy Summer, all the greatness behind this show. Bye. Have a great week.